Hello, everyone. My name is Ruth Hayhoe. I'm very pleased to use this video to tell you about the book launch, which we are planning to hold at CIES 2023 on February 21. The title of the book is Authentic Chinese Educational Thought. And in this book, we have translations from 4 influential educators who have never written in English. I'm glad to be co-chairing this book launch with Dr. Jun Lee, who is the president-elect of CIES this year, and also Dr. Julia Pan. Both of them worked with me on the book in choosing the articles to be translated and doing the editing work and putting the book together. We're also delighted to have 3 doctoral graduates of these scholars, now senior scholars themselves, who will share with us a little bit about what it was like to work under these scholars. I think many of you may know that I have had an interest all my life to bring Chinese educational thought from some of the really influential educators to a wider English-speaking public. And so in 2006, I published this book with portraits of 11 of China's influential educators, scholars I had worked with in joint doctoral projects starting right after the Cultural Revolution decade. And that was a kind of, let's say, a project of love to try and make their work well known. None of them wrote in English, so their work wouldn't be known without translation. But several of them have already had their work translated. And so we have Professor Yuan, the most senior comparative education scholar in China, still living and still active at Beijing University. His book came out about 2016 or 2017. We have Professor Panmo Yuan. He lived to 101, the founder of higher education scholarship in China, and his book came out around 2020. We also have Professor Yelan, the leading scholar in educational or school reform and educational leadership, already out. But this book brings 4 more of the influential educators we worked with, who were extremely important in the transformation of education after the Cultural Revolution in China, starting in the early 1980s, and really laid the foundation for the transformation that has been so evident in the last 30, 40 years. And so you can see there are 4 of them here. We chose articles. In the case of Lu Jie, the senior woman professor, first woman to supervise doctoral students in education, she herself chose the 5 articles which we have had translated. And she lived until about 2 years ago. She passed away on Christmas Day in 2021. And then 3 other senior scholars. I'm just going to share very briefly about them, hoping to interest you in reading their work, which we have prepared and put out in Chinese. So first you can see Professor Bingde, a fascinating Chinese scholar who actually studied with Piaget in Switzerland in the 1940s, came back to China and was a leading scholar supervising the first doctoral students in Northwest Normal University in Lanzhou, China for many, many years. One of his doctoral students has recently been appointed Deputy Minister of Education for all of China, after working for more than 30 years in the northwestern province of Gansu, heading the university and serving in the Ministry of the Provincial Bureau of Education in a very transformative role that has been recognized in this way. So Professor Lee's 5 of his articles you will find in this book, all about pedagogical innovation from the bottom up. He was an amazing scholar, lived to 2005. The next one I mentioned, the only woman of the 4, Professor Lu Jie, a very strong figure in moral education, a lifetime at Nanjing Normal University, and really revived moral education in a kind of very personal way, a kind of self-transforming way, as against some kind of rigid imposed doctrine from above. So her work, again, very influential. And although the university is a provincial university, the Institute of Moral Education has a national status in China until today. The third one, Professor Wang Fengxian in Northeast Normal University in Changchun, Northeast China. Again, a scholar in moral education, and also did a great deal in cross-cultural understanding and bridging the diversity of cultures. Again, a scholar who never wrote in English, but we have translated 5 of his articles selected by his own doctoral students. And then finally, at Beijing Normal University, the leading philosopher of education in China, Professor Huang, wonderful scholar of Chinese traditional aesthetics and philosophy of education. And again, we have selected a number of his pieces with the help of his students to be translated. So we're delighted to present this material in English in our new book, Authentic Chinese Educational Thought. And finally, I just want to mention, all of these 4 scholars spent their whole careers at normal universities in China. Unfortunately, the English-speaking world has forgotten what a normal university is, although we still have them in France. But it's a university that gives education the highest status, not only for the training of teachers, but across all dimensions of life and understanding. Education has a very important status, and there's a very strong emphasis on knowledge in action, knowledge that will be transformative. And so it's a pleasure to share with you the work of these scholars. And we're so delighted to have 3 of the senior scholars now who experienced their leadership as doctoral supervisors over many years. And we're going to invite them to share their experience and invite all of you who are able to come to our book launch to ask questions and contribute to our discussion. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you at CIES.